The Trumpet Daily from Jerusalem.
Hello again, this is Stephen Flurry speaking to you from the Ophel excavation site in Jerusalem. Since 2006, Armstrong College has provided volunteers for Dr. Eilat Mazar to help excavate here in Jerusalem at the City of David from 2006 to 2009, and right here at the Ophel from 2009 to today. Now, this relationship between the namesake of our college and the Mazar family actually goes back more than 4 decades. In 1967, following Israel's victory in the Six-Day War, Dr. Benjamin Mazar, Eilat's grandfather, was put in charge of a massive new archaeological dig just south of the Temple Mount, which is where we're situated right here today. In September of 1968, Mr. Armstrong sent a few Ambassador College officials to meet with Benjamin Mazar here in Jerusalem, and it was during that visit that Professor Mazar told them about this excavation and said it would be one of the most significant digs ever undertaken in Jerusalem. Now, less than a month after that, Mr. Armstrong himself came over here to see the dig firsthand, and that was the beginning of a long and endearing relationship between these two. It was out of this unique friendship that a strong and durable partnership was formed. You could say it was set in stone on December 1st, 1968 at the presidential residence right here in Jerusalem. During the meeting between Mr. Armstrong, Professor Mazar, the Israeli president, the Israeli tourism minister proposed an iron bridge partnership between Hebrew University and Ambassador College, a partnership that can never be broken, he said. Now, Mr. Armstrong later marveled at the favor he had received here in Israel. He said it was inspiring and astonishing and most unusual. Now, at that same time, back in the United States, the buzz among students was about who would travel to Israel to serve on the excavation. And beginning in the summer of 1969, dozens of AC students made their way here to Israel to volunteer on the excavation. The Big Dig, as it became known, would continue for 10 years, and hundreds of ambassador students would have the opportunity to excavate around these ancient stones. Now, as the years passed, the friendship between Professor Mazar and Herbert Armstrong blossomed. The two friends could often be seen walking arm in arm, visiting the site or relaxing at Dr. Mazar's home in Jerusalem. Professor Mazar also visited Ambassador College multiple times in Pasadena and Big Sandy, Texas as well. The bond between these two was sincere and natural. They shared many similar traits. Both were straight-talking and uncompromising. Both were interested in taking the Bible and objectively proving the truth, whatever it might be, rather than fitting it in with preconceived beliefs. After years of research and labor, the Big Dig yielded artifacts dating back to the First Temple period of the 7th and 8th centuries BC, during the days of the glorious temple that King Solomon had built. When Mr. Armstrong died in January 1986, his good friend, Professor Mazar, wrote this. He said, "During the years of our association with him, all of us developed the highest regard for his wonderful personality and qualities. His deep devotion to the ideals of peace and justice in the spirit of the biblical prophets was appreciated by his friends in Israel. His feeling for Israel and Jerusalem was manifested in his true interest in the archaeological excavations near the Temple Mount and in the City of David. His name will always be attached to this most important undertaking carried out in Jerusalem." Now, of course, the same could be said about Benjamin Mazar, who later died in 1995. Years after this special relationship would be revived, thanks in large part to the work of Professor Mazar's granddaughter, Eilat. Okay, so I'm here on top of we're on top of a Byzantine monastery structure, a terrace overlooking what was the Temple Mount excavations from back in the late 60s and during the 1970s. And of course, I'm with Dr. Eilat Mazar, the granddaughter of Benjamin Mazar, the one who got all of this started And as I told you earlier, I familiarized the audience with a little bit of that history between your grandfather and Mr. Armstrong and the ambassadors, and then now the students from Armstrong College. And so if you could now fill in some of the details on just the enormity of this excavation itself, what took place over the decades and how it led into where we happen to be digging right now. It's a lot to cover. You can summarize
it's a long story. It's a really long story. But the most prominent features now to look at, first is the southern wall of the Temple Mount. This is the most impressive structure. And we are just at the foot of this southern wall of the Temple Mount, which is Second Temple period. We're talking about a structure that was saved and so impressively built 2,000 years ago by King Herod. And at the foot, all this area around us, it's part of the Temple Mount excavations, excavated by my grandfather, and so many people contributed their part in it. What we are standing on, for instance, is a Byzantine structure. So this is later, this is much later, this is 1,600 years later than the southern wall of the Temple Mount. But this area is called Ophel. Ophel means, it's a biblical term for Acropolis. And from the time, we suspect, from the time of King David, this area served as Acropolis. But during the centuries, in the Second Temple period and later on during the Roman and Byzantine and early Islamic periods, everybody added their constructions as they needed it. So we see all around us, for instance, this structure, Byzantine, that we're standing on top of. We see the stairs from the Second Temple period. Behind us, remains in this area, it's quite dull remains from early Islamic, but we have impressive remains on the other side of the wall. We have...
This right here, by the way, is the old city wall that just kind of cuts right through the Temple Mount excavation.
And runs around all around the old city.
Okay.
And we can see all around us. The thing is that we are standing on a relatively high place, and the Kidron Valley and the city of David just down below.
Right.
So we are very high relatively to our surroundings, although we can see that there are very high mountains all around us.
Yeah.
But although they are very high, but they are far away.
Right.
And we are talking about this ridge, which is the most ancient core of the settlement. So the thing is that from the city of David, they started to, climb up the ridge. King David was the first to go out from the most ancient fortifications and settle all this area that was an open area at the time of King Solomon. So we excavated there after Charles Warren, Kathleen Kenyon, most famous archaeologists during 150 years and more, and my grandfather.
Right.
And then we started, my grandfather and myself together, and then later on, by myself, we excavated there. This is already, we'll visit there and we'll see, this is already ready for the public visits.
Right.
Now we continue. This is our present excavations.
Right.
So still we deal now, as we are at the very beginning of our excavations, we're dealing with the Byzantine period.
Yes.
We study the Byzantine period as much as we can, and then we'll go further down, and that will be, as I see now, impressive remains from the Second Temple period, and then we'll find the First Temple period, as I suspect. Of course, all my expectations and sometimes, theories, etc., step a bit on the side as we start work. And then the area starts to speak for itself.
Right.
It's very clear. And then we'll see how much of what we suspected was right or where we were wrong or, completely aside. And everything that we'll reveal will be most fascinating. I'm always surprised by the area. It's the things that I think, it's one thing, and the other is by itself. And that's what's so beautiful in archaeology. Here especially, I would say, that nothing as precise as I thought I understand the area is not as precise as it is.
Yes.
So
there's
it's
always surprises.
Always huge surprises, and that's what's so nice about it. Much better than everything I had in mind.
Well, one thing that we're very excited about helping you with this particular phase is you're anticipating finding all these exciting things, and we're hoping to put some of the information a little bit that whatever you choose to release on the new excavation website, the Key to David City. It's key2davidcity.com, and Dr. Mazar here has granted us the permission to talk to her occasionally, to talk to her staff, to release some weekly reports perhaps that just familiarize you with what's happening here at the excavation, and hopefully with some of the finds that she gets really excited about. You're a very excitable person, so we want to convey that as much of it as we can.
And I'm sure it will work. I'm sure, because it's easy stuff, you know, to get excited by. And this is the first time we do such an experiment, and I'm sure it will succeed. But it does give the people who are really interested in what we do, not just to hear about it at the end of the excavation season, but really to share a weekly information with us. Sometimes all kinds of, you know, hesitations, doubts, thoughts. It doesn't have to be the final report.
Sure.
And I think they can also ask questions. Like if they have questions, we'll be most delighted to answer and to use our program in order to answer questions and really get people to be part of what we do. Although, you know, long distance, but still, I mean, by the media today, they can feel almost here.
Well, we're excited about it. We thank you for the friendship we've had since 2006 with you.
This is
and
great.
We thank you that our students can help out here. They are just over the top with excitement.
Well, you know how much we love you and the great appreciation we have for you, and this partnership and the participation that we share just strengthen us and give us the ability to do much more than we could, significantly, meaningfully, and we just hope for, you know, good news as we have such a solid ground for enabling this.
Absolutely. So for you, you can look forward to these updates at keytodavidcity.com, and until next time, this is Dr. Eilat Mazar and Stephen Fleury.
Bye-bye.